It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics. Welcome to episode 77 of the Comic Book Conservators, the greatest live comic book conservation show on YouTube and in the world. What is up, my...
Are there any other ones, though?
Well,
Zing.
thanks, Shelby.
Hey.
That was great. So nice to have you back. I'm so glad you're here.
I am too. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for the kind well wishes and stuff. Thank you, Phil, for checking in on me, and of course, Paul for being there with me through this whole ordeal. So,
well, welcome everybody. We've got a great show for you tonight. We're super pumped. We're getting ready for Collector Summit next weekend. And I think we got a great show for you tonight as like a warm-up. Those of you that are traveling, Larry's on the road, speaking of. Shelby's come back to give us a little update on what he's been dealing with and where he's at, what he's up to. And I have, as always, my trusty co-host, Phil from Phantom It's Still Restoration. Welcome, Phil. How are you?
Just, keeping people on the edge of their seats, Hey, as always, coming to you live from the border of Brooklyn and Queens here in New York City, and coming to you for the last time as Phantom Restoration to be determined.
You heard it here.
Dr. Paul, it's great to see you. Shelby, it's great to see you. I like the Star Wars shirt. It's
don't you mean
Sunday.
Mr. Clean?
That means yes. You need to post a photo if that hasn't been posted online. Dr. Paul did the most terrific Mr. Clean costume, really on point. Chef's kiss.
All he did was wear a white T-shirt and put white stuff on his eyebrows. That was it.
I got some earrings. Come on.
It was great. But yeah, as always, I know it's Sunday when I'm doing this podcast, which means it's time to hang out and talk comic conservation with you guys. So happy to be here as always.
Welcome. And, you don't get enough applause. Shelby, say hi to the people. Tell them where they can find you. Give them an update. Let them know what's been going on.
Yeah, hi people. Well, right now you can only find me on this show because I've not been posting anything in a long time. I actually just noticed this week we're coming up on 1 year of me not posting anything on YouTube, which actually has been sad and pretty nice, to be honest with you.
He felt like he was a slave to the tube.
Yeah, those of you that actually do comment, that that it takes a lot of time and effort to not just film the content but edit it and do all the other creative stuff that's behind it. And while I have missed being able to do some conservation over the past year, we did publish a book. All I have is this copy. I have a retail copy because you can tell I was in the process of moving. So here's the update. I was in the process of moving because been unemployed, need to sell the house. And the last time y'all saw me, which was around the last week of August, I was actually telling Paul just that night, I said, man, I don't feel good. I feel achy. There's this thing on my lower back that just doesn't seem right. And I just do not feel good. And then the very next day, on Monday, I started getting these massive chills and fever and everything. And then the bump on my back had gotten larger and spread across. And didn't know what it was, knew it wasn't right, but no insurance. And here's Jack.
We knew it wasn't right.
Oh, Jack.
No
insurance. Diagnosis.
Ow. Thank you, Jack, for biting me. No insurance, so I couldn't go to the doctor. And, called up like my stepmother and the neighbor next door, right? Like their doctors. telling them the symptoms, and they were both like, "Oh, it's COVID," and blah blah blah. It'll be gone in a couple of days. And yeah, it was not gone in a couple of days. And by Wednesday, I was worse. I was feeling horrible, and I live by myself with 3 cats. Jack does not know how to use the phone yet. So I had to end up calling an ambulance, and I went to the emergency room. They first diagnosed me with COVID, did a bunch of tests, and I was negative for COVID. And I'd been telling them about this thing on my back, but no one would listen to me. And finally, Thursday morning, I got someone to actually listen to me, and it was a massive infection. And what had been going on is I was going into septic shock. And if you know anything about sepsis, that's not good. You die from it. They immediately called everybody. They've been pumping me of the wrong antibiotics for 2 days. My kidneys was shutting down. I had a massive bladder infection. They said I had basically a 50-50 chance of living and to call next of kin. And I called Paul that morning, told him so he could let everybody know. And they said the next 12 hours would be, excuse me, because it's still pretty tough. The next 12 hours would be telling of if I was going to live or not. And those got me into emergency surgery and removed a large portion of my lower back. The tissue had already gone necrotic. So, yeah. So as you can tell, I did live, which was good.
Shelby's a tough mother.
Yeah. I did not feel very tough, but, you know, thank you. Phil was checking in on me weekly, and Paul, of course, was there. Larry checked in. Then several people messaged me through Facebook, and Peter messaged me, and I really appreciate it. But the good news is that, yes, I'm alive, and I've been healing well, and I should be out from under doctor's care this week.
Nice.
Which will be good. So that means I can then travel again just in time for Collector Summit. And I look forward to meeting Phil and Larry in person.
Yeah, likewise.
So it should be a good time. And yeah, that is my story. I'm sticking to it.
All right.
Hopefully within the next couple of months. So that put off some of the moving plans for a while because I wasn't allowed to do any moving. I wasn't allowed to sweat in order to, you know, like they didn't want things to get reinfected and stuff. So I've been having to take it easy, but hopefully this coming week. So yeah, so we're still back in the same situation, just with a lot more doctor bills.
Well, you have a job now.
I have a temporary job that is lasting till the end of the year, actually December 19th. Hopefully they'll find the budget to keep me working in January. If not, then yeah, I'll still be kind of back in the same situation of job hunting and stuff again. But
I have confidence.
by that time, I'll be out from underneath this house.
Yeah.
And I'll have you know, have it sold, and then, you know, I'll be kind of stable for a little while.
All right. That concludes the sad segment of the show. This only happiness moving forward. So get everybody, this is now Happy Town.
I knew
so glad
a
to have
lot.
you back, Shelby. Looking forward to seeing you soon. And anybody traveling to Collector Summit, Shelby's going to be bringing some copies of our book.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a great time. And that is starting 6 days from right now. And as a matter of fact, if you're a gold ticket holder, it's starting 5 days from right now. So let's get on with the show. First, let's thank our sponsors. If you're watching this live without ads, you have several folks to thank. Salesboy Comics, Don Carter, Collecting Chaos, Lost in Wallace, and Gorilla Monkey 3K. give them all a thanks, follow them, like their content, show your appreciation. We appreciate it. And again, this show would be a lot less fun if we had to pause for. Let's say thank you to them. Here, let's do Morris Devereaux is here. The professor Peter Alachi's here. My buddy Ram Space Knight. What's up, Mike?
Yeah.
Unbothered Kitty is here. Hey, Cat, looking forward to seeing you this next weekend. Don Carter's here. The aforementioned Salesboy Comics is here. What's up, Dylan? Jason, the Archivist Adrift, as per usual, here. Lots of well wishes and welcomes back to Shelby. JCP is here. Our first super chat of the night, Salesboy Comics. Thank you so much. He says, welcome back, Shelby. Phantom Conservation, 1 vote for that. I don't know if we're doing that, but there it is. Aaron Conyers is here. You Pluck My Last Nerve is here. He says, great to see you.
Point, but...
I Don't Like Comics says, hey, I miss you. I'm a happy customer of Shelby. He says, honest seller from USA. This is Danilo.
Hello, Danilo. Great to see you, my friend. Yeah, and hopefully once I get moved and stuff, I'll start selling and everything again. Of course, start making content. So we'll have to, it'll still maybe a couple of months, but everything's in storage. Most everything. I got to get into the closet and find the boxes for these things.
T. Chavez Jr. says, sorry to hear about that. Get better. I assume he's linked in through your channel, Shelby. Jim's here from Bronzeville Comics, says, great to see you on the other side of that ordeal. So happy you're here and doing better, says Unbothered Kitty, and very nice to see you. All right. Lots of folks in the chat tonight. We've got a great show for you. We're going to hop in.
One of my favorite comic book series that I cannot afford to purchase any of.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've been talking about, these early timelies are bananas. What you pay for them. There's a huge premium on these early timelies, and I could see why with this one.
Yeah.
This is a great book. This is very early. This is pre-war. You might say, well, clearly it isn't because we're socking out Nazis on the cover. But in fact, this is cover date November of 1941. Of course, the United States entered World War II December 8th, 1941, the day after the day that lives on in infamy. And this would have been hitting the newsstands maybe September of 41. So kind of like maybe 60 to 90 days before the attack at Pearl Harbor. So it's pre-U.S. involvement in the war. There were a lot of factions in the U.S. at the time trying to keep us out of the war. Timely, of course, was run by Jews, and they had a vested interest, maybe more than the WASPy folks in the U.S., and this is why we have Captain America stalking out Hitler on the cover of Cap 1. And this is why, and hats off to them and bravo that they had the chutzpah, maybe that's the best word for it, to be attacking Nazis when the U.S. was vacillating, and when generally the U.S. was the general consensus among the citizens was that we ought to stay out of this war. So
yeah, it's only been about 10 or 15 years that we've actually started acknowledging the role of the Jewish immigrants or Jewish people in comic. I know about 15 years ago, I sat in on a panel with Howard Chaykin, and the con he was at, they was discussing the role of the Jewish, excuse me, people. I apologize. In comics, and most of these people were from that descent back then.
Simon and Schuster, Kirby, Lee,
exactly.
His
so
brother. his wife's cousin, Martin,
Exactly.
who
So
of
you
course,
had a lot of pro or anti-Nazi or Axis, I should probably say, since it consisted of Germany, Japan, and Italy. But you had a lot of anti-Axis stuff going on in comics for many years, at least a couple of years before we actually entered the war.
right?
And this, like Paul said, is an excellent example. And we do, of course, want to acknowledge, we are a very happy channel here, and we are respectful and love everybody. And
Well, I'm willing to go on record. I don't love Nazis.
we don't love Nazis.
I don't know if that's controversial.
It might be. Probably not though. But yeah, we definitely acknowledge, and that's what a lot of this channel is I know Paul and I have talked about it, and I know Phil respects it, of course, is the history. And there wouldn't be a comics history without the creators that, of course, made these amazing comics that we get to look at today.
Yeah. Gorilla Monkey 3K, welcome. And Jason, I mean, maybe he was like one of Bruce Lee's cousins, Stan. I don't know. Somebody have to look up the family tree. So Marvel Mystery Comics number 25, as I said, November 41. This is their main anthology series. So this particular issue has stories from Kazar, the Vision, the Human Torch, the Angel, Submariner, of course. This is, as I already mentioned, great Nazi cover. This is by Schomburg. I'm assuming also Jewish descent. One of the interesting things, and CGC denotes it on the title here, there's a text story by Stan Lee. And this is not the first time he contributed a text story to a timely issue, but it's one of the first, if not the first, that he's credited with. So the text stories were not always credited. So those of you that are Stan Lee haters can come in now and talk about how he was a glory hound even in his teens, because of course he went and served in World War II. So he had not yet been deployed when he would have done this. He was just a kid working in his wife's cousin's shop at the time. He was probably a gopher for Kirby, at least some of the time.
Cap 3 is the first text story that he did.
Oh yeah. But I wasn't able to find out if this is the very first one that's credited to him. It's definitely an early one. CGC notes it on the label.
And I know he started out doing text stories prior to actually writing, illustrated stories and stuff. So this is probably one of his earliest contributions to comics.
67 all grades, only 54 universal. These are tough books. 1 signature, 2 qualified, 10 restored, and just the 1 conserved that we're going to be talking about today. Median grade 5.5. In terms of fair market value, very interesting. So there's been a few sales that bookend our book in the last 12 months. There was a sale of a 0.5 for just under $500, call it 500. And so that would put it at approximately $1,000 per point, but we know we have price compression at the bottom of the range always. There were 2 sales in 6.0 in the last 12 months. They average just over $3,000. That would be $500 per point. And so Go Collect has some algorithm where they interpolate that and they smooth it so that when you get to the middle of that range around 3.5, they're somewhere around $750 per point ish. And so their algorithm gives the fair market value of a universal at 1.9 kilobucks, 1,900 for those of you that speak normal speak. And That seems reasonable to me, so I'm going to use that value. We don't have enough sales to say otherwise. And again, it makes sense. It's a pretty smooth curve between $500 a point at 6.0 and about $1,000 a point down at 5.0 or 0.5, I should say. The other interesting thing of note here is that this exact book, the one that sold in the last week, this exact book sold on eBay about 2 years ago, November 6, 2023. It hammered for $1,357 in an auction with 31 bids. High man or woman standing paid $1,357 plus tax and shipping. And so there's a touch point for you. 2 years ago, that's what the book was presumably worth. So let's have a closer look. As I mentioned, 3.5 conserved, November 41, issue number 25 of Marvel Mystery Comics. Conservation includes cover and interior reinforced, cover cleaned. Grader's notes indicate stain, full bottom of whole book, completely split and sealed spine, multiple wraps completely split and sealed, page corners and edges chipping. For as much work as this book had, it presents quite well. I mean, look at this thing.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's beautiful, right? I mean, I don't think anybody would scoff at this book in their collection, conserved or otherwise. It presents beautifully. I mean, this is a 3.5, right? And I understand it's a 3.5 for these structural issues and for staining, but
that's
haven't we all seen a 5.5 uglier than this?
Buy the book, not the grade. And if you don't care about the brutal pages, man, the reds on the cover here, the colors, structurally, there's not a big piece missing. There's not tape stains, big, tears. I mean, there's quite a lot of defects that could be here that aren't, and this is an attractive copy of this book.
Look at the molten steel that Schaumburg has illustrated here, where the Human Torch is just going after the Nazis' machine guns here. I mean, this is something, isn't it?
If it was a girl at a 3.5, I would date her.
There you go. The back, it does show the stains along the bottom. You see a little bit of staining. Looks like rust transfer here on the back cover in the upper right. But the back bottom, you can definitely see the stains that are mentioned in the grader's notes.
But not bad. I mean, they're probably about an inch in. It'd be different if it covered like a fourth of the book or something. But that
soiling through a book like that, I can understand as a that's the term I would use here is soiling. Other than just, I feel like a staining is more subjected to just a single area or page maybe, but I digress. It's just
I think these are tide marks, which is why they call it stain.
I'm only saying that because the grader's note said it was through the book, right? So
so presumably there's tide marks like this on all the pages. And I glossed over it a bit, but Phil pointed out, the professional that he is, brittle pages has a lot to do with the grade here. And presumably would have a lot to do with the value as well. Definitely something to consider when you're buying these books, and all other things being equal, a brittle page book is always going to be worth less, sometimes substantially less than a white page or off-white page book. That said, what do we think? So for context, Universal is $1,900, and the last sale here is about $1,350. That was 2 years ago.
I think when
get your guesses in.
When people see brittle, or even sometimes slightly brittle, I think sometimes their opinion is kind of swayed by the optics of looking in the slab and seeing if there's little pieces moving around and stuff.
Right.
And at least in this case, I don't really see anything that jumps out at all. So I think some people might even initially gloss over the fact that it says brittle pages because the 3.5 too. I think a lot of people aren't I think someone mentioned in the chat that they cap out at they say 3.5 or 4, but I think it is 4, I believe, for outright brittle, and slightly brittle I've seen upwards of 6.5, I want to say, somewhere in that range. But yeah, that is definitely that's a factor here.
That's the ballpark, yeah.
Yeah, and I would actually deduce further, Phil, that since there was some tear seals done, that the pages aren't that flaky brittle. You know what I mean? Like it would literally fall apart when you touch it, or else how would the tear seals been able to have been done?
It's probably brittle right on the crease, right? Because it's so brittle. This is why all the wraps were split, right? I think brittle that trying to open the pages just splits the wraps, but it was probably stacked. So just that paper right there is oxidized. The rest of the paper is probably in better shape.
Exactly. I think, so you both really raised, and Paul, you just elaborated on the point there, and that is that there really is a delineation between once a book has slightly brittle, which normally slightly brittle, at least by CGC's definition, is if they open up the cover and they open up the first page and they see a split, it's usually regulated to the spine. Then they see slightly brittle, but the rest of the book is fine. Outright brittle doesn't mean that the entire book is brittle. It just means that it's somewhere between slightly and the amount that separates slightly brittle and brittle. So there is, it's like a very subjective.
Thanks for clearing that up, Phil.
Yeah, but so sorry, I'm trying to like kind of talk it out myself too, and try to understand. But the point is that even if it says brittle, it doesn't mean 100% of the entire book is brittle. It just means that it's enough that it's affecting the structural integrity, where if you handle it, things are going to be falling apart. That's what that means.
And here it seems, as you said, relegated to the spine, which is probably the splits. Want to say what's up to Red Hood Comic? He says, "Sup guys," and then "Mama." I don't know. I gave it my best shot, Red Hood. Tell me what you guys think of that in the chat.
And that is a drawback, right, of the CGC. I didn't notice when it was graded, Paul.
23.
Was it 23?
Yeah, before the 2 years ago sale.
Yeah. So, talking to Matt at the way that they create these labels there is a drop down software, right? So they select stuff that would go underneath that title. And so that is one of the drawbacks, and Matt completely admitted it, is when you see something that says like brittle pages, well, does that mean like the entire page is brittle? Is it just a section brittle? Is it all the pages are brittle? Is it just the first 3 pages that are brittle? So it does lack that.
It's not super comprehensive.
It's not comprehensive. Exactly.
I mean, that's the trade-off. You pay $40 to have this book graded. I mean, maybe a little bit more for this specific book, but there's only so much they can do for your $40, right?
There's over 1,000, so it would have been the percentage thing of it.
Yeah, but still, you're paying less than 100 probably to have this graded. So let's get to guesses. The professor says 1,500. You pluck my last nerve says 1,600. Morris Devereaux says 1,100. New Row Comics, welcome to the show, says 2,200. Sales Boys at 900. Wow, he thinks the owner took a bath here. Jason's at 2,345.
Dr. Paul, where did this sell the second time? Because I know you said it sold on eBay the first time.
I did say that, and I didn't disclose, but I will. It was sold fixed price on eBay, but with a offer.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so not auction and on eBay.
JCP's at 2,000. RJ Bingham, 7th Earl of Lucan, decided to ignore the brittle pages on the bid. Welcome to the show, and I'm thinking so too. So he's at $2,000. I'm assuming he. Sorry if I'm wrong. Ben Stewart says 1425.
And I'm with
Gorilla
you.
Monkey 3K says 22 honey. Where you guys at?
I was literally thinking like 1450, 1425 when Ben put in his comments. I'm gonna piggyback on him and say like Ben Stewart said. And Shelby, just be quick before you say yours, I'm just gonna say one quick thing, and that is, if this book, if you're just looking at it real quick and you see the 3.5 and you see how nice it looks, I would make an educated guess that someone easily could haphazardly look and be like, oh, that's just white pages, because our brains are so used to seeing more than one word for page quality to be like off-white, white, creamed off-white, but just that one word that's the same length as white, if you don't really focus in and see brittle instead of white, you might totally overlook that. I'm just saying it can happen unless you really are looking at the book. And for this book, really anyone should educate themselves enough. This didn't go for $20, so but it's easy to not notice something like that.
I was going to say 1500, but Peter beat me to it. So to follow Price is Right's rules, I'm going to say 1499.
That's not how that works. Rom Space Knight is at 25.25. So let's reveal the winner. Book sold for $2,050, October 17th. As I said, this was listed for $2,500, and this was the best offer that was accepted.
I should have known better based on the little line that you said in this episode. Like,
I'm trying to leave you guys clues. That said, who's the winner? Who's our winner?
The person that bought it.
Gorilla Monkey was real close. JCP was actually
we had somebody close. Right at 2,000. RJ Bingham.
RJ did.
JCP is also at 2,000. I don't know if we had anybody that snuck between 2,000 and 2050.
That would be it.
You guys win. So we have JCP and RJ Bingham.
You guys win a comic book conservator's new prize. Congratulations. Ooh. We tip our hats to you for guessing.
But as you said, the winner here, look at this. The winner may have been the seller, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, Go Collect indicated the estimated value of Universal's $1,900. This sold for $2,050 before shipping and taxes. So it sold for 108% of the estimated fair market value of Universal. Yeah, I think the seller did all right. It was a dealer, so presumably, I don't know if this dealer may have been the one that bought it at auction, or maybe the buyer at auction sold it to this dealer or flipped it. Unclear, but either way, I think this is one we can say everyone's a winner. At the end of the day, it sold for a premium to Universal, presumably at least, since we don't have a recent comp in Universal. And it also presents amazingly. So for what the buyer got, I think they're probably quite happy. We talked about these timelies. I mean, they're bananas money. If for an equivalent DC book, you're going to pay a quarter to a third in grade, maybe even a little less than that. Timelies just have a huge premium on them.
I find it such a strong price for a conserved book with brittle pages. So
that's what I thought.
That's the real kickers. The page
I think the presentation helped it a lot.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
In today's market, though, too, where I feel like people are saying how the market is not super strong, I think that you can say that if you look at certain books, but if you look at other books too, you can make the case that someone was willing to pay $2,000 for a book with the worst possible page quality any book can have, and it still looked pretty good, but still on that technical aspect, timelies rule. And someone was like, I don't care about that page quality, give me that book. And it's probably on their shelf and they're enjoying it right now.
It's the old school Marvel zombies. Yep. It's the timely zombies that are putting in these bids, man.
Well, and you can't see it's encapsulated, so you can't see the pages, right? So it's not like you're gonna be opening it up and then that's gonna be brought to your attention, right? It is I mean, this is something I know Matt Nelson and I talked about when we were working on the chapter of the book. And, Paul, I think wrote a little piece in the book about it, is that while this has brittle pages, which would then indicate, from some flaking, chipping, things like that could occur from that brittleness, with it being encapsulated, it does kind of suspend those issues from happening, right? So it's not being opened or enclosed and looked at and things like that. However, what it's not doing is it only slows down the deterioration process by air and light and things like that not getting to those pages. It does not stop that deterioration process. So if you were to open this book up in 50 years, you're going to see that flaking, that chipping, and things like that may not have been present when it was first encapsulated.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we don't know. I mean, hopefully the conservator deacidified this while they were mending everything, but
I don't know.
we need a non-destructive test for that long term.
I would have felt that it
yet.
would have, like Larry has had great experience with, taking a book that was once labeled brittle page, doing a wash and calcium hydroxide, exposure, and then regrading it. It did not show brittle pages anymore. It may have shown slight brittle or tanned or something like that. So I would have thought that if it was done professionally, you would have gotten above brittle.
Yeah, these corner cases also, are tough to grade, right?
I feel like in the same way where you can do that cleaning of the entire interior, and just through the nuance of the grading and how it's viewed, sometimes you can ID the cleaning and sometimes you can't. So sometimes CGC is going to note it, but sometimes they won't. And like you said, Dr. Paul, unless there's a surefire way to say, oh, this has been deacidified, without CGC's notation, there's really no way to know it's been done for certain.
Sure.
Other than, like, in this case, them saying the cover was clean. So at least we know the cover here was clean. We don't know if the interior was or not.
Well, and that's something too, right? Is in there is nothing in their software that I know of that could mark deacidified, right?
Because they don't have a non-destructive test for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know that's something, again, we have talked with Matt about is, and we've mentioned on this show, is that if the conservator if they would actually look at the notes from the conservator saying, hey, this has been deacidified, then it could be put in. That would be the only way. Yeah. That'd be the only way, right?
Yeah. Today.
Unfortunately, they don't even take those notes.
They don't.
At face value for all the other types of work that are done, at least consistently. So at least right now, it's asking a lot. But ideally, I assume we're going to get to that point because
we will.
Yeah,
we will. I mean, Matt has expressed a lot of wanting to discuss that subject a lot more with us. And once he gets back to actually creating the next edition of the grading guide.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last point too before about how CGC can't always catch the cleaning in the same way where it's more like guidelines and not rules. So you can clean slightly brittle pages, but the quality of the paper might be relatively similar after the wash. And in some cases it's much better, but in other cases it just really isn't that much better. It's been deacidified, but to that point, you can regrade it and the page quality might bump up higher, but not always. So there is that
and more so, there's even a danger of trying to do like a full immersion wash with brittle pages. I know I've had plenty of books just flake apart. We've seen those floaties, in the water whenever we do a full immersion.
Ben, it's by inference. He says, how are brittle pages determined specifically? It's by inference. Ultimately, the only way to know is to to literally try to bend it and it cracks instead of, bending, right? And they're not in the business of damaging your books. At least they're not intending to be in that business. So they're looking for clues. They're looking at the history. They're looking at to a certain degree, you can feel the suppleness of the paper. You can feel how stiff it is. And then they're looking at these splits in the spine. And as we've already discussed, I think when you have multiple wraps split down the center, what that means is the book was stacked during storage and that folded edge was exposed to a lot of oxidation. That paper right there at that folded edge became quite brittle to the point where someone came along years later and they attempted to open that book and it just split. The rest of the paper may be fine, again, as we've already discussed. So,
yeah, there is a little section in the book about using sight, smell, and stuff on comics
all your senses.
And Matt actually, sorry, I seem like I'm mentioning Matt a lot. We were talking about him before the show, so he's kind of on the forefront of my mind. Matt actually added something to that section. He said that they do smell comics, so not just going by sight of like really dark pages could be an indicator of brittleness.
Very cynic.
They'll smell it because as paper ages, it will get a distinctive smell to it. Yeah. And I actually, when I first wrote that part, I didn't have taste in there. And Matt actually suggested that I put taste. Now, of course, he said we're not going to say that we lick comics. But, taste can be an indicator. So I actually added taste into that along with sight, smell, things like feel and things. So, yeah,
I think that you really highlighted like the biggest point, and that is like it's the stress marks on the book already, like is the biggest indicator. So because of that, very often if you see a book that says slightly brittle pages, it's because they're splitting at the spine, and it's almost always right at the spine, just above the top staple or at the top edge. Like that's where it's starting. Mm-hmm. That's where they see it happening. Or sometimes where it's just straight up brittle, it's that plus, let's say there's like interior
edge chipping
that have edge chipping or that had creases, and like if you just look at that crease the wrong way, that whole thing just comes off. So it's like they don't have to question if that's brittle. Like the crease is just detached that piece already. That means that area is totally compromised.
Yeah, I think a lot about pulps, right? We see so many pulps that are just that they fall apart when you look at them.
Yeah.
So Knights of Old, I'll actually comment on this is I know that's a topic that's difficult for us to discuss, and Paul and I have talked about it a lot in terms of what we mean by preservation. Yes, the book can be preserved, in the Kerber, fullback, and etc., just like it can be preserved within a CGC encasement. And I understand what you're saying is the jostling around within the case itself could cause things to flake off. But even the Gerber doesn't allow full air tightness, which, just getting air in there will continue the same process that has begun to create the brittleness to begin with. And then second, you actually probably get a little bit more flex to the book if you're handling it regularly as compared to a hard CGC case. In both cases, you're probably not handling the book, whether in a Gerber or a CGC case, enough to cause that sliding around and that brittlement to cause flaking off of that brittlement. So just a counter thought to that one.
Yeah, I saw that.
Look at this. RJ Bingham, 7th Earl of Lucan, says, I studied under Bill Sorrell in the 80s, and his brittle test was opening a book to the centerfold and gently pressing. Of course, those of you that don't know, Matt Nelson also studied under Bill Sorrell, and
The
I studied
Godfather.
and
second
Phil.
hand under
Phil's
Bill
a
Sorrell.
second generation.
One of the last people. Yep.
He pulled out an early Popeye 4-color and pressed, and the book unzipped into 2 stacks of leaves, and he said, "Yeah, that's brittle." Well, again, CGC is not trying to be in the business of destructive tests, but that's a good one. That's
It is.
that's 100% good test. Ben Stewart says, by the way, a big part of taste is smell, of course.
It is.
I'm going to say, if you're enjoying the show, give us a like, sub if you haven't already. Tell somebody about the channel. Come check us out on Facebook, where we have the comic book conservation community. Join the conversation that continues beyond this one. If this hour is not enough comic book conservation content for you, head over there. If you're a boomer and you're still on Facebook.
And check out a lot of the other people that have shows. They can drop their YouTube links over there in Facebook. Because I know I don't think it allows you to drop links here in the chat. Peter has been doing some amazing work lately on the Sensation comics using gels, which is something I need to sit down and interview him about so we can put into our new book.
Yeah,
which hopefully will be coming out within the first couple of months of next year. And
the conversation continues. Yeah, in the Facebook groups. So
it does.
All right, and aforementioned, the professor says betaine and glycerol both help with brittle pages when added to the aqueous baths, as he's shown us. And with that, I think we should move to our second segment. Phil.
Hey.
You're up, brother.
In which I did not add betaine or glycerol.
Right?
Too.
Yeah.
But hey, this is just a more straightforward process. And we don't show a lot of what a simple thing is.
This book looks like it has a lot of potential, a lot of meat on the bone here. This is the kind of book I salivate over.
Heck yeah. I mean, this is also one of those books that some people see and they're like, I don't want that stupid case in my collection because it doesn't fit all my other books.
Yeah,
and due to that
magazine case.
Due to that one reason, they said nay, but someone else said
it's that one reason why they have to buy a magazine box that has one book in it.
Yep. So okay, so we got Mystery Men Comics #2. And jumping right in, why do we care about this book? What is this book? You probably haven't seen this book before, right? So real quick, for those that haven't seen it again, look at that. It's from 39. So a lot of you probably haven't even seen this because a lot of the earlier Golden Age books you'll see are from like 1941 or so and after. So 39, we're talking real early.
This is early
Published by Fox Features Syndicate in September of 39, which means this was on stands a couple of months before September of 39. So like, figure that out. I mean, next year, this book's going to be turning 87 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's wild, man.
And it's got an action-packed cover by Lou Fine.
I love Lou Fine. He's done some of my favorite covers of the Golden Age. He's overrepresented in the Golden Age of comic books, which I cut my teeth on in the early 80s with my passion for Golden Age collecting. And man, what a genius. This is, you know why these guys were so amazing as artists, and gals too, though most of them in comics were guys. It was because they came up and were trained in illustration before cameras were widely available. This was an era when photography was either non-existent or very expensive, and there was a need commercially for people to be able to illustrate things faithfully. And that's why these comic books from the Golden Age and even the comic strips from the Golden Era are so insanely beautifully illustrated. So
yeah, I'll even point out, like in this almost watermark background that Phil has here. Notice the left arm is the muscular structure is accurate. If you notice the bicep, the way it comes down, and he's got it shadowed, it's got a touch of the elbow, and even in the forearm, he has this overlay.
The chopper
Of
is
line.
that way. Chopper.
Yeah, because because you have two muscles that come across right here, and he actually has that illustrated in. He does the same thing on the right arm with the way the musculature lays, and that's not just embellishment, that's a knowledge of anatomy. I mean, and I studied illustration back in the 80s.
If you're looking at
And part of your repertoire was you had anatomy books.
Oh yeah.
And it's just amazing.
I mean, if you're looking at other like prolific creators from this time period, like Bob Kane, that guy couldn't draw to save his life. So I mean, like by comparison, if you look at some of his stuff to someone like Lou Fine, it's like amateur hour, and this guy's like a real professional. It's like night and day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of hard to tell on Bob Kane because he used a lot of ghost artists because he was also kind of, hey, I'm a Batman fan too. That's a little throwing shade at as a the point is, really, if you compare a lot of other artists from this time period to someone like Fine, you'll see exactly what Shelby was just kind of illustrating. That is like there's an elevated level to this art for this just being a comic book, which was disposable and thought of not as an artistic art form at this time. So this is way ahead of its time.
More super chats. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Don. Appreciate you.
Sorry, got a little ahead of myself there.
No, go
just
ahead.
to finish up this slide too. So this was
yeah.
so early that this was this is the very first issue that has the first Fox Features brand emblem. So I mean, this was very, very early, and also so early that it's kind of something that you don't think about. But man, this was the second time there was ever a robot on the cover of a comic book. I mean, that's kind of the 1940s hadn't even happened yet. So and to date this is getting to be almost 90 years old. It's an unbelievable thing. And to that point, look at that, a total of 38 created copies. Imagine the print run of this book when it came out. There's 38 total.
Bananas.
In any condition, any label, 38.
And we definitely embrace these into the superhero genre, I would say, but you can definitely tell the pulp influence of, the science fiction, the spaceman with the, flying apparatus and stuff. So it's not really superhero, but we definitely embrace it as that. But it's got this very strong pulp influence versus, say, a Superman influence.
Oh.
And to that point, I mean, Superman had only been around for a year.
A year.
There really wasn't much time to really even be influenced by something like that.
I agree with you. I don't think
a lot of this stuff was influenced by the pulps because the pulps had at least a decade or a couple of decades worth, 15 years worth of time to kind of at least create a baseline for the art form.
Well, even the Sunday comics, right? These were influenced a lot by the Sunday comics.
I think the Sunday comics, but also you just had a couple of huge sales of the more fun comics and comics on parade and things like that, right? Like a publisher had put together this amalgamation of Sunday comic strips and put it on the newsstand, and it sold, right? Sure. And it sold millions of copies. And then I may be exaggerating there, but it sold several 100,000. And so I think this is an influence more of the medium of presentation in comic book form of stories along with pulp that influenced this more than, say, Action Comics #1.
Welcome to the show, Collecting Chaos, and Phil.
Another
a
Philip.
neighbor of sorts here, watching from an undisclosed location in the Texas Hill Country. Welcome to the show.
A Philip with 2 L's. There's very few of us. Most Philips only have 1 L.
Oh yeah, the other Phil with 2 L's.
Not to put them down, but we have 2. That's okay. So, all right. So to this copy of this book, man, right? It presents well from the front cover. It's got a lot of eye appeal. It is a bummer though. It's got some bug chews on the back, that whole top edge. And really, if you look on the front, I'll show in the next photo. You can see there's a little bit in the front cover too. Almost the perimeter of the 10
we
cent.
see it. Yeah, we see it.
The perimeter of the 10 cent in the upper left.
And
as
isn't
well
there
as that
some
full
there
edge.
near the N and men?
And then, so in addition to that too, there was a little bit of the edge, which you'll see in some of the later photos. But again, this is a copy that, aside from that, really, it's got a lot going for it. The biggest detractor was it being in one of the oversized magazine cases, but the potential that you can see here just by getting the spine roll out is significant. So that's what we're going to do here. That's why this was sent in. And as you can tell too, especially looking at that bottom staple, this was a book that had to be handled with the utmost delicate hands because there was a rusty staple and
I am
those
sure
are very
that
unforgiving.
If you didn't lose that staple while doing this, I'd be very surprised.
So I typically, especially a book like this, not always, but very often, I like disassembling my books just because it lets me get in there a little bit more. I can handle it more without worrying about things happening. I can even kind of slightly reinforce the cover in areas that I couldn't really do if it's still assembled. Still getting the blue label, of course, adhering to all of the rules under CGC. In this case, though, that wasn't really an option because the rust at the bottom staple was enough. I was only going to risk damaging the staple, and I didn't.
It'd probably fall apart. I've had plenty of rusted staples just turn into dust.
Yeah,
that is so interesting that something only ate out the white of the number 1.
I think this is silverfish. This is classic.
I think it is
silverfish.
too. Yeah, silverfish. Yeah.
I've noticed this trend, and the best thing I can think of is the bugs are still bugs, but they can delineate between paper that has ink and not, and they choose the fresh, non-inked paper, and enough where they're actually going around the ink there, which is kind of cool. Because they even kind of went into September a little bit, but they got a little ambitious and ate some of that black ink too. But but all things said, this could have been worse because that whole top edge of the back could have been the top edge of the front, and then this book is like a remainder.
For those of you who may not know, this book in this condition is an absolute treasure. There just aren't that many copies of this book that have survived in any condition. The fact that you can still view all the graphics on this cover makes this an absolute treasure, really.
Yeah, and look at the thickness. The thickness did not help the survivability of these books because that thickness just almost lends itself to being folded, to being, massively creased, opened, closed, flipped through. I mean, it's almost like it's almost like a stapled together newspaper more than what we would think of as a comic.
Sure.
The biggest thing you'll see with these Golden Age books with 16 pages is the centerfold oftentimes will be loose or popped out because even though they use staples that were a little bit bigger, it still is holding together twice as many pages as the books right after this. So I mean, it's again, these were made to be read and thrown away. No one almost 90 years ago when this was published thought that a couple of guys would be looking at this beater copy of this book in earnest and looking at how we can improve it. That would be a ridiculous proposition on their end. So this book had some other issues too. Obviously the spine roll. It had some other folds and creases that were just begging to just kind of fall apart unless they were attended to quickly. Mm-hmm. So,
and then thank you, Phil, for such detailed documentation here. You know, we talked about it in our book too, about the need of documentation. And this is an A1 example of, if you're wanting to do this, go take that off angled picture from the corner and, you know, be able to see all those pages, see that fold over, see the spotting, you know, really document, you know. I know that when I take pictures, I usually have a minimum of like 8 or 10 pictures of each side, you know, where I'm at each angle, each side, down, off, raking light. You know, that documentation is so important. And
It can be,
thank you, Phil.
Yeah, it can be tough. Sometimes too, I'll take photos like this at an angle and then realize that I have the before and after scans, but I never took the after incident light photo like this. So it's like, it's a bummer. And so sometimes it's only
guilty.
So
guilty. You're so excited to be finished, you forget about taking off after.
The scan at the very least, I'll always have at least a final scan, because that's as a liability to CGC, where I'm sending most of these books anyway. But some of these photos, I do try my best, if I do take photos like this, to take the after, but I also don't always get to take photos like this for every book.
Yeah. So y'all take note, conservators out there. This is
hop back quick. So let's do a little back and forth. So this is just a little thing. I think I did 2 presses for this one because I couldn't disassemble it. I wasn't super happy with the one press I did. But
sure,
that's what it was looking like after the first one. And man, already looking a lot crisper, a lot better, much nicer, much more in line with what we want to see it looking like.
Look at the clean workspace too. Not for
and
nothing.
Yeah, thank you again, Phil. Is you have a mat, then you have and maybe you just have that white there just to have contrast for your pictures and stuff. But yeah, such a great example of a beautiful workspace. And I still and we've talked about this before, the hard iron holders that you have, you know, so important. And then even a second book over there you've been working on.
Oh, I know. Sometimes I'll try to, you know, but hey, as I say, I'm drowning in comics. That was one of the books that I was drowning in. Here's
my God, look at that. Oh,
so this was before I did the final press, because I wasn't super happy with how that was lining up at the bottom edge there. And even books like this, sometimes I'll do the second press and it basically reverts roughly to right back to where it is there. And that's just something that I've found is something totally out of my control. Sometimes books will go back to what seems.
Paper has a memory.
Yep, exactly. Like how it was printed in production. And there also is the element of how, well, there's some consistency. Sometimes the books were cut kind of off. You know, it was a little jagged anyway. It's not always totally flush. So at least in this case, I saw that and I said, I got to put this back through again. And then I believe this was after I did the final press. So this is kind of showing in a little bit incident lighting. I think I had another photo showing some dents that were in the cover that I also took out there at that point that I didn't show here just because we have so many photos. I don't want to take up too many slides, but
exactly.
Here you can get a little bit better of okay, so now I got it back a little bit better, and that makes just a little bit more difference. It's not really going to affect the grade. It's just my OCD of wanting it to get back as nice as it can. So sometimes the one press isn't enough. Sometimes you got to do that second press or third press. Or
Phil, your camera here is your iPhone?
Yeah.
And this again examples the multiple uses of pressing, right? A lot of times we think of pressing in maybe some certain way, and I'm not going to get into details of that. But as Phil's pointed out here, right, the pressing serves as refolding, you know, taking out the spine roll, flattening the pages, and removing certain defects such as dents and things like that. Now, of course, you know, we still see slight minor defects and things. I'm sure that wasn't the intent to try to get it perfectly smooth like glass or anything. But as Phil said, as a side effect of that, you get these other benefits of really good pressing. Can I ask a technical question, Phil?
Yeah.
Did you go through just the simple process or a normal process of just slight moisture, and then was it a heat press, cold press? Was it both? Do you remember?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always do a very typical, oh, yeah, hey, bada bing, bada boom. So, yeah, there's 1,001 different ways to press books.
There are.
Everyone, especially a lot of professionals, have their own way that they like to do it. I have my ways that I like to do it. Books like this that have spine rolls, again, if you missed it earlier, I'll just reiterate, I typically like to disassemble books because I find that it gives me much more pliability and I can kind of get away with more and handle the book more. And also really kind of get the press done in the first time without having to do a second press. That's not always the case, but most of the time. In this case here, for this book, I did the light dry cleaning first. Then I threw it in my humidification chamber for a period of time. And then I think what I'll often do, especially on a book like this, is I'll hit it with a little extra humidity along the spine, since that's the part that I need to work more. So I'm humidifying the whole book, but I'm also adding a little extra humidity at the spine. Then I'm putting it in one of my presses that's been calibrated where I can kind of pinch the book in and take the spine roll out. And then I leave it under the cold press I try to like leave it under for at least 8 to 10 hours or overnight. And then I'll pull it out. And then that's when you saw the first set of pictures there. So then what I did was, I think I put the whole book back in the humidity again, just because a book that was this old, I figured it wasn't really going to hurt it to add in a little extra humidity.
Sure.
Since it lost so much over almost 90 years worth of time.
Yeah.
And then I basically kind of did the same process, except after I pulled it out, or rather when I put it in the press to like, I pinched it and put it into the press to take the roll out. Instead of leaving it in the cold press, I left it in that press for maybe 10 minutes. Then I pulled it out and then treated the book as if I didn't have to worry about the spine rolls. So then I put the backer board in the center. I put the other, my stacking layers throughout the book, then threw it in the press. It was fine. And just to clarify too, that's to say, whenever I'm doing the spine roll and I'm pinching the book in the press, I'm never putting a backer board in the book or putting any stacking layers in the book whatsoever. I'm just putting just the book in the calibrated press.
Yeah.
So that allows me to get the roll out as possible.
I do not remember the book that I did it on, but I do have an old video showing the pinching process as I understood it, where I refolded the bent spine and then I literally pinched it where I took some clippies and cardboard to kind of hold the edge together. So that way I could, when I closed the press, it was pinching it along that original seam, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what you meant whenever you say pinching. If people aren't familiar with that term,
I'm just using my my fingers and
you're using fingers. Like I said, not necessarily.
Without getting too technical, I'm basically like getting it in the position I need to, and then swiveling it off my desk. But so like the area that I'm pinching is off the desk and the rest of the book is on, and then I'm pulling it from my desk while it's pinched.
That's right. Yes.
Carefully placing it in the press and putting it in the press.
That's
so it is you got to be really careful between the motion of when you have the book pinched in your fingers and also putting it in the press. And it's also
right. That's why
for people that haven't done this and you're trying to visualize it, or you've seen people on YouTube do it and stuff, do it on $1 beater books first, because it's so easy. I've been doing this for years, and sometimes I'll pinch it and I'm about to put in the press and I'm just worried that I've pinched it in a way where it's not uniformly falling back into its original orientation, and I'm creating a slightly off degree crease in the spine, and I'll stop and I'll say it's better for me to go back to my desk and recalibrate the pinch to make sure that I'm confident. And I'll see it and I'll be like, the pinch, I had it right the first time, but I'm glad I tried it again, because if you do it wrong and you pull it out, those are cases where you'll see, and it's in the CGC and Matt Nelson's book and the grading glossary, books that have what's the term? It's not a spine roll. It's almost like it's when someone purposefully rolls the spine in the opposite direction from what its orientation is to try to hide defects. And that's one of those things where you can do that in those instances by accident. You can accidentally pinch it too great, and you're putting the spine in an area that it actually never was. So,
Phil, a lot of other questions, but to be succinct here, you have a published price list. Your price list
on my website. I think based on this book's declared value, I think it was like $100 even for this client. I think it was 100, might have been 125, but I think it was $100.
And when you say calibrated, you're talking about the pressure. No. You have your press set up so that you know how much pressure, because you don't have it buffered, you don't have a centerfold backer board, and you're holding it, right? So folks are asking about the calibration. I do not believe it has anything to do with temperature. It has to do with
nothing to do with
the amount of pressure
that
it's going to apply, because you know how much you want, because this is handheld just on the spine. It's pinched, and you're applying the pressure with the heat.
In my experience,
just to set that fold.
In my experience, it's really hard to crush a spine when you put the backer board in the book, because I don't think the machine can even get enough pressure to really mess with crushing it. But you certainly can crush it with there's nothing else in the book. And I did that on some of the very first books I did conservation work on, because the source that I learned through, as earlier discussed, Bill Cyril, back 25, 30 years ago with restoration, pressing very much was in its infancy, to the point where it really wasn't being done at all. It wasn't even really thought of. It was so overlooked. Sure. And I had to learn all my pressing through other sources, which at the time there weren't a lot of people on YouTube or anyone doing it. So I had to go through, there was like Captain Mike or one or two other people, I think. So some of the very first books I pressed, I didn't put backer boards in, and I can see where you put too much pressure at the spine and the staples sink in, and you can look at you can see how the staples just push. It's just not good. So
I've popped centerfolds out before, even overpressing, and you're right. Thank you for bringing that up, Bill. There's several things that could happen with overpressing, popping the staples out, and also if you think of it as just flattening those fibers unnaturally, right? Then you could have a book grow in odd places, which I've had happen.
The biggest thing that you'll see if you're using too much pressure and you haven't crushed the spine, but you're causing unnecessary damage to the book, and damage that can be kind of hard to take out. If you're using a backer board to kind of create a little bit of a sandwich in the press when you're taking the spine roll out, so you're pinching the book, putting it in the press in a little bit of a sandwich, right? That backer board that you're using, if there's too much pressure, the edge of the backer board will press into the book. So then you'll put a really nice vertical crease on both covers of the book, and you'll pull the book out of the press and be like, cool, I took the spine roll out, but I put this huge crease, and that's a crease that you just put in with a ton of pressure.
And hard to get.
So good luck taking that out. Totally and completely.
It's always impossible to be able to take it out. And that's why Rick sells his chamfered board, because it reduces the the chance of that happening because it has a rolled edge, you know, and not if you're careful and you do the right amount of pressure, you don't like, oh, you gotta push that press close,
Less,
you know,
less
with
is
like
more.
both arms,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff. You can.
Ben,
Oh.
Phil does not use tack iron when he's correcting spine roll. I do. You may be remembering my preferred way is to actually use the tack iron to reestablish the correct roll, and then I do a press with a full buffer. But that's not Phil's preferred method.
I've done that. I actually, talking to you about those, Dr. Paul, I've done that in instances where the spine roll isn't. Honestly, sometimes I'll do it in instances like this where I do the original press, and then the spine's so close to being back to where it is, but it's not perfect. Instead of putting it in a press, I'll humidify it, and then on my desk, I'll use one of, I love these size weights. It's basically the full length, vertical length of a book. I'll put this to mimic the pinch, and then I'll put one of the other ones I have, and I stack them next to each other, so that way just the spine is exposed, and then I'll use my tacking iron on that, and then with the added humidity, the tacking iron really can be just as efficient as the press, and then I can quickly throw it into the press after I let it sit.
Because it'll hold that. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it will revert if you're just done.
You just got to do it quickly.
But if you keep it, it'll hold it and you press it. So those of you that have watched me, I essentially do the pinch with the left hand with a center backer board, and I tack iron it both sides until it will hold, and then I throw it in the press immediately.
Yeah, it's easier in that transportation process that Phil talked about, right? And that's why I use clippies sometimes.
Yeah,
with a cut up backer board, you know, so it's not clipping directly on the comic. That just helps me hold it pinched till I can maneuver it over to the press. Because like Phil said, if you're holding it like this, sometimes it will shift on you, or you know, you got to let go. You only got two hands, so at some point you got to let go and pull that lid down, and something could shift. You know.
Yeah. Welcome, Bulu, and welcome, Mr. Collector 123, and anybody's guess. Welcome to the show.
In this case, for this book, I think I did this more for insurance, because not to talk ill about CGC, but I just want to make sure that the people over there handling a book like this after I do this aren't going to like pop the cover when I didn't pop the cover, but when the staples I know are delicate and someone that just quickly handles a book may accidentally handle a book a little too brazen than they should otherwise. So I took some photos here just to show. From here you can see the staples, and I have another one from the splash page, which I'll show here in a second too. So you can see the staples, and I mean, look at that. So I can understand the hesitation that people might have when you saw what this looked like before that staple is now at the spine. I mean, you can see rust migration. That's some scary crap. When you look at that, you're like, I don't want to press this and pop the staple. Just know that, think about where the pressure is going on the spine when you do spine roll reversals. I personally, I'm not trying to like, I can't ever remember popping the staple ever. Yeah. And that's just because I'm very careful with what I do, but I always act as if it can happen. And I always get scared, even in an instance like this, that it can. But if you do the process correctly and safely, you'll never have an issue. And in this instance, you can see that, it's all safe and tidy where it should be.
Beautiful.
Yeah, patient for sure. Which is,
I mean, as beautiful as a rusty staple can be.
Yeah, right. And here, so you can see a little bit more of the chew that goes through the interior too on that right edge. But man, it's kind of a cool early 1930s first page for this issue.
Ooh. Beautiful.
And I think, so there is going to be a reveal. So the book, I'm not going to go all the way back through, but it was a 1.5, right? In the magazine holder. So
1.5
It was
universal.
Resubbed after I worked on it. This is the before and after front cover. You can see. Look at that. I just it weren't. I see that spine, and I'm like, man, I don't even see any of the defects. As far as I can tell, this book feels like a 9.8, and I'm happy how it looks. And it looks beautiful. Mwah. I want to just give myself a pat on the back because I didn't do anything that the book didn't allow me to do. But it's so nice seeing it reset back to where it was originally set all those years ago.
There's a reason they call it the golden age.
Really quick, Knights of Old, the reason why he didn't replace the staples, what Phil said was the fragileness.
Well, he's going for universal. The reason the staples aren't replaced is
and then second is universal.
Yeah. I mean, if something happens when I disassemble a book, I can always replace with period staples. That's fine. But in this instance, I've replaced. Let me take a step back. I've disassembled books like this to do the work when I don't see rust migration into the paper, and I just see a little bit of surface rust in the staple. Then I check out the centerfold, and there's no rust migration. And then I'm looking at the staple, and I feel a little ambitious, and I'm like, cool, I can take this apart without the prongs snapping. And I mean, my discretion is good enough where I think I've had prongs snap 3 times in like 8 years. So it doesn't as long as you can know when a staple is going to pop when you can look at it. And in this case, I was like, if anyone wants to try to take apart one of that bottom staple, it's going to pop. So I could replace it with one, but it's not going to do anything about the migration into the paper. So there's no added benefit to.
So if I can summarize that, Knights of Old, the answer is you already have rust migration into the paper. If you now replace the staple, you have a tell because you have a non-rusty staple, but you have rusty paper. So you are screaming at CGC, I replaced the staple. Now CGC has to deal with that, and CGC has to put this in a conserved label, which is going to take presumably a hit on fair market value. And this client wanted universal work, wanted universal label, filled in universal work. So
and I think
that's why we're not. That's why that bottom staple is left as is. Thank you, Gorilla Monkey 3K, for the super chat.
And I think that's a good point, Paul, is like Phil said, this is for a customer. If this was my own book, right, and I was going to keep it or whatever, 100%. I mean, if Phil, and I'm not trying to speak for Phil, but, if Phil was going to keep this for his personal collection, he may choose to replace that rusty staple because it's not attractive. It could cause more damage later on. Maybe it's brittle and it's going to break apart anyway, but he's having to follow what another person wishes for this book. So 100% Knights of Old and anybody else, probably 98% of the time, all of us would have said replace that staple, but that's not what this customer wanted.
I think in this case, the reason it's called popping the staple is that the staple protrudes outward from where the paper is, and it pops up. So that's just the nomenclature, I think. But I get what you're saying. And then
I think you also used it once, Phil, to mean that you were going to break a leg off when you said,
"Oh, yeah." Sometimes I'll do that. Catch me if I. Yeah.
That's
a Philism, or Bushism, if you want to go back a couple 20 years. Womp womp. And then, so how would you deal with the rusted staples if concert? Okay, so if this book were to be conserved, I think the proper thing to do is excise the cancerous paper that has rust migration, basically view it like that, and then you'd have to leaf cast that supporting paper, and then you could look at the staple and determine if the rust has compromised the integrity or not. And really, as far as I can tell, that would just mean you can basically kind of give it a light scratching and removing the rust. And then as long as the prongs open enough to take the staple out of the book and then put it back in, then you're good. It's not going to get wet again. It shouldn't really cause any more issues going forward. And then it's going to stay closed. That's your best bet.
Yep. Agreed.
Concur.
this will show that back cover pick. So
This would be This would be one of those two. I'm looking at that stain at the top corner, and well, just the stains overall
yeah, a lot of stains through the whole book.
is that a aqueous bath may actually help with that staining, but in this case, I probably wouldn't suggest it with the edge, the way that the bug chews are on the edge of that paper. It'd be very hard to keep those flattened and feathered out through an aqueous bath. And they're probably so thin in certain areas that they may just split apart on you. So this is actually a case where I don't know. And Paul, you may have a slightly different opinion. I'm looking at like that top middle, just where you have that little bit of paper and stuff.
That little isthmus of paper that would be gone if you put it in water. Yeah,
that'd be gone.
I agree with you. But also, if you're doing an aqueous bath, you're probably leaf casting. You're going a whole different direction.
Yeah.
You're trying to get this up into like 3.0 or better. With the paper replacement, and so it's
to be conserved. This is a great. I mean, it's awesome how really all the paper that's missing on this book is paper that doesn't have color on it for the most part. Kind of cool for the leaf casting aesthetic here. While we know in this case it doesn't make financial sense due to the value of this book, maybe in the future, maybe it will. And then one other side note: my OCD, I look at the after photo, and my eyes it's still the bottom edge on the left isn't as flush as it could be. But you know what? Look at the after edge here, and look how there's always the natural fanning of the interior pages at the top edge.
On these golden ages, there are,
on the golden age here, especially.
Because they weren't trimmed. They didn't go through a trimming process like modern books. Like they're not trimmed.
You'll get a little extra fanning on the bottom edge too, not just that top edge, and that corresponds on the back cover too. So it's like my trained eye looks and I'm like, oh, that means there's a little bit more of the roll could have been taken out. This
wasn't perfect. This wasn't perfect from production, so it can't be perfect in your conservation. It would.
The way they sized, meaning cut paper back then. Nowadays it would be going down and it'd be like a sheet and it'd be cut. They took huge reams and a huge knife cut through. Now, as you're going through that ream, the paper is going to, that stack of paper is going to move. So that's why you get that weird edge like Phil's talking about, where I think the other image showed it a little better, is you get that if you look at the top right edge of the after, you see paper sticking out there. Then if you go to the bottom right, you see paper sticking out, and it's because of the way it's cut and that ream shifts, and so you get that that paper is not a perfect 90 degree when it was actually cut, and so that's why you see more paper along the edge at the top versus the bottom, but then you see it at the bottom. It's because it's not a perfect 90 degree cut because of the way that shifts.
Well,
I think
unbelievable, beautiful work. Are we ready for the reveal? Because I got the drum ready. You ready?
Last photos of the reveal. Hey.
Awesome.
So this was one of I think like once a year I get a submission where CGC is like, we've adjusted your submission because we say that it goes in the next tier above, and this was at high value, and they said nope, this is unlimited value now. Personally, I was expecting a 2.0 based on that because there's some repression in the lower grades here, and I thought that was a very interesting decision to do that on this book when they don't do that on a lot of other books I submit where the value is much greater. But I digress. Anyway, the important thing is this book finished one of these nice standard size holders,
Huge.
and that's really what the client was going after, and they were going after eye appeal. And you know what? I'm not gonna go, whoa, is me, when this thing got a grade bump too. It did. It went from a 1.5 to a 1.8. All the graders notes here that you know,
it presents so much better, and there's a huge value bump in going from the magazine holder to the standard Golden Age holder.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't anything else.
It's a huge win. Yeah.
That's I mean, so in the grader's notes, you have the wormholes right top of all pages, the shoes on the cover and the interior pages, and multiple stainings. So this isn't one where they're just saying there's some thumb creases or some non-color. It's not. I don't think anyone's looking at this saying no, we can get a higher grade. I think this was basically maxed out. And
Knights of Old, it started as a 1.5. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I would be thrilled with this. I think it's not a stretch to see 2 here, but I also don't think you're robbed at 1.8. There is, after all, a lot of material missing, and you do have the stains, which we know they disproportionately dislike stains. And you have that rusty staple, right? And you have some rust migration paper.
3 years ago or before they changed their stance on stainings, I think this would have hit it too. But I
can totally see that. Yeah.
And lower grade books are always harder to grade than high grade books. And you know, if you want to take it mathematically and say, okay, a spine roll was worth 0.4. Right. So basically you just remove the spine roll, but we know there's a lot more that was done, right? We know that there was some flattening. We know there was some cleaning. There was some dents removed. I'm surprised it got white pages.
So we had white pages before still too. And that is a thing that I don't remember when it was graded exactly, but I think because of the label, let's say even 10 years ago, that is something where people, there's a little bit of a lack of understanding that these books that haven't been deacidified, which is the vast majority of them, are still decaying. So it's not uncommon to see white go off-white to white. It's not uncommon to see off-white white go to white, because there's subjectiveness to how they're seeing it, and that can happen just upon another resubmission without even having any work done.
100%. And I said the wrong word when I said surprised. But you know, so it's not accurate to think of like, okay, removing a spine roll is 0.4 because there's so much more done. But it's so difficult to grade lower grade books, you know. So I agree with Paul. I could see a 2, but I don't think you're ripped off at a 1.8.
No.
You know, if anything, you might say, well, was the 1.5 overgraded? Again, it's so hard to grade lower grade books. Would that previous book warrant more of a 1? Well, no, not when you look at the criteria for grading of a 1. And I don't think you were ripped off by it being a 1.5, or anything benefited by it being a 1.5. It's just that there's so much more defects in a small range of numbers that sometimes you just don't see a huge bump with these lower grades.
Yeah. Just because work was done doesn't mean that the grade is going to bump. That is something I don't like being told, that I've been told, but is something that is absolutely true.
Yeah, it's true. Well, there's the technical grade, because there could be technical limitations. You can dramatically improve a book and not change the technical grade, right? That's just a fact of what can happen. Now, presumably, you've increased the fair market value. You've increased how it presents. I would say 2 things to kind of wrap this book up. And again, hats off, beautiful job. One that we mentioned on the previous book in the A segment too, is as a 1.8. Although I think that this is a reasonable technical grade for the book, I have definitely seen 4.0s that present worse. Right. So this book, especially when you're looking at the front cover, presents magnificently for a 1.8. And from that standpoint, I think there's a lot of value created here. And the other thing that I was going to say, I don't remember now.
Something that never happens to our esteemed host, Dr. Paul. He's having a slip. It's okay. It happened. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. What was it?
You know what? You were dazzled by the color scheme on this book. You know, and I
Oh, this
totally
is what it
understand
was.
why.
I know what it was. Fox Features Syndicate Books. This paper is not the same as the rest of the Golden Age paper.
No.
These are scary books to work on. So the other thing I was going to
yeah.
say is it's actually an accomplishment to work on one of these books and to not have it be degenerated somehow, because this paper, they
Crazy.
used the thinnest, crappiest paper of any publishers in the Golden Age. So
You want to know what's actually kind of crazy now that I think about it? I would say that it's very likely the spine roll happened early on in this book's life, because I've mentioned before on the show about Fox books that are otherwise basically perfect, but the spine of the cover is totally split because it sat in a stack and there's just been enough pressure on that creased spine. In this case,
and
it's
the
possible
oxidation on the edge. Yeah.
on this case, the spine roll might have helped save the original spine here from getting a little duress that it would have had over time that it didn't have otherwise.
Yeah. JCP, yes, the micro chamber paper is buffered and has been demonstrated to deacidify paper over time. So, and one more kudo. Phil's work is bold and strong.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I appreciate Phil's patience, because I know that's something I lack with my own conservation a lot of times, and I love calling it out because I know that, you know,
Oh, shucks.
this took a long. This was a long process to get that book to where it was. I'm sure. You know, your $100 fee did not cover the hours that you put into this.
Collecting Chaos. I think people often get confused between condition and grade. A book in nice condition can still be considered low grade. Absolutely. And thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks, everybody. We had so many chatters tonight. Good lively discussion. Appreciate you. Before we get out of here, let's go back and thank this show's sponsors once again. They were, it's so far back. I got to scroll. Salesboy Comics, Don Carter, Collecting Chaos, Lost in Wallace, and Gorilla Monkey 3K. Next episode will be sponsored by Salesboy Comics, Archivist Adrift, Don Carter, Gorilla Monkey 3K, and Collecting Chaos. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Looking forward to seeing some of you very soon next weekend at the Collectors Summit. If somehow we don't know you, please come up and introduce yourself. Say hi. Looking forward to meeting some new folks, seeing some old friends. And with that, I will say thanks again to Phil and Shelby for joining us. Thank you for sharing your journey, Shelby. Glad to see you back up and about.
Glad you're with us. And,
I think, Shelby, you wanted to talk about what we're doing next weekend a little bit. Go ahead.
I was. So I don't think we're going. We talked a couple of times between Paul and I about because the way the summit is set up, Saturday is just a preview. Then the actual show is on Sunday.
Yeah, we won't be able to do a live show next weekend, certainly not at our normal time. So I think we're just going to try to capture some content while we're there and put it out on the channel. And we'll see you all live the following weekend, 2 weeks from tonight. And
I mean, if we don't get an opportunity to do something special, that we won't. But yeah, we won't be having our normal show at the normal time. But Paul and I know, have a lot of plans to do some interviews while we're there. Of course, show some amazing comics. I would like,
there's always,
I would
there's
like
always some great stuff in the room.
Yeah, I got plans for Paul and I to hit a couple of tables together, maybe even talk through some of our thoughts when we're looking at books and things like that. I think that would be entertaining for you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Also, if you're going to be there, you want to bring your copy of Comic Book Conservation, we're happy to sign it. If you're going to be there and you don't somehow have a copy yet, we're going to have a few with us. You can pick one up from us. So,
yep, and we'll be doing a slight discount since there's no middle person, so to speak, of going through Amazon. It's not a big discount, but you'll get a slight discount. We'll sign it for free. And yeah, so we're looking forward to everybody there in Dallas, the Big D.
Appreciate everybody.
Thank
And
you.
as we usually say, until next time, take care of one another.
Thanks for tuning in live or